Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's Lisa Mateo.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bloomberg's Winning the Innovation Game, Modernizing IT Without Disruption. And those are two key words for today, right? Without disruption. We're going to dig into all that. Before we do, first, I'd like to thank you all for joining us here in New York, or maybe you're joining in from somewhere else on the live stream. We are super excited that you can be here with us for today because we have a number of finance, insurance executives who are going to be sharing how they're implementing groundbreaking AI, cybersecurity, data management technology, and how that's transforming the workplace. And using those digital systems, that gives them a competitive edge. It allows them to create efficiencies. It allows them to provide utilities to businesses and consumers. And as these companies start to integrate AI a little bit more into their operations, well, leaders, now they're faced with, how do I train my staff to use this technology? Well, we're going to be digging into all that because it comes along with partnerships as well. So what are some of the topics that we're going to cover for today? We have a few goals in mind. The first goal is to collaborate on new solutions. And this is for some of the toughest technological difficulties that people are facing across finance, across insurance. We'll spark new ideas by bringing you together with these diverse executives across a variety of different sectors. And finally, we'll amplify best practices to create a safer, but also a more efficient workplace. But before we get into all of that, I do have a couple of announcements. First off, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Rocket Software. We wouldn't be able to have all these conversations today if it wasn't for them. You'll be hearing from them in a few moments, so just stay tuned for that. Another thing, I want everyone in this room to be part of the conversation in here. How do you do that? On your table, if you notice, there are QR codes, okay? There's also QR code on the screen. You can scan that and basically write in your question, and we will try our very best to get it answered on the stage here for today. Now, if anyone partakes in social media, we do have a hashtag, Winning Innovation. You can follow along for today's highlights. And if you find something interesting for today, you want to post it, or maybe you take a picture with someone who you know or someone who you just met, please use hashtag Winning Innovation. And be sure to tag us over at Bloomberg Live, too. And while you're there, give us a follow. All right, it is time to get things started for today. I'd like to welcome to the stage our sponsor, Rocket Software. For opening remarks, it is my pleasure to introduce the president and CEO, Milan Shetty.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on what is going to be an exciting storytelling as well as reality checks on modernization without disruption. My name is Milan Shetty. I'm the president and CEO of Rocket Software. Rocket Software was started as a small startup in 1990. It is focused in enterprise software in B2B as the main focus area. Most of Rocket Software, and we recently celebrated our 35th year anniversary, has been focused on mission-critical software in enterprise, banking, insurance, healthcare, name it, regulated industry. That's been the core and key focus of our Rocket, has grown and evolved to now over 3,600 Rocketeers who are focused day in and day out on how do we help customers to modernize without disruption. In this 35-year journey of Rocket, by which, by the way, I joined Rocket in 2020, so I've been only here 5 of the 35 years of this journey. One thing we have learned, listening and talking to our customers for all this period is, in the mission-critical and regulated industry, our customers are constantly challenged to modernize to whatever the latest trend is in their industry or in the marketplace. But because this is a mission critical, and a regulated industry, they need to find a way to do it while managing risks. No downtimes. Making sure the bank records are accessible, making sure the health records are safe and preserve their privacy, making sure the travel industry continues to work seamlessly. Our customers are in the business of managing risk, yet they need to modernize on the trends and the latest trends of the industry all the time. What we have learned is modernization is an evergreen need and an evergreen opportunity. You are never done. You have to continuously be in the process and be forefront of your industry on modernization. Rocket's value proposition is how do we help our customers to modernize without disruption. We have done this time and time again, and we will be here the next 35 years helping our customers in the modernization journey. In today's world, the three trends which matter a lot, and we'll talk about that with distinguished guests we have coming up here shortly. The first one is around security. How do we make sure that access to the mission-critical data is secure and continues to be secure? Second trend is how do we make sure our technologies and all the investment which has gone into technologies connects with a hybrid cloud environment. And the third, perhaps the biggest trend of the current year, the trends come and go, but modernization and need for modernization continues to be evergreen, the current trend on generative AI. And how do we use AI effectively, non-disruptively, and more importantly, while preserving the privacy. So you'll see a number of our guests, and welcome to this event. We're proud to sponsor this. Thank you, Bloomberg, for giving us an opportunity to host this event. So modernization without disruption, that's what Rocket Software, B2B, mission critical, regulated industry, this is what we do. We've been doing it for decades and we'll continue to do it for decades as well. And later, I will have a distinguished pleasure to have a distinguished guest, and I'll do an interview with Sean Ocala from DTCC, talk about mission critical. That's one of the most mission critical institutions in the financial industry. With that, thank you very much. Enjoy a great event we have for you. And thank you, Bloomberg, for allowing us to sponsor this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Milan, for that great introduction. We'd like to get things started. We're going to kick things off this afternoon. Sorry, I work a morning show. My mind, I'm up very early in the morning. Our first panel, what we're going to do is explore how AI can drive transformation in their respective industries. So please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's Neeraj Patel and his panel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lisa, for that introduction. We have a great panel here today to dive into AI and how it's impacting insurance and the finance industry. And just as a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to scan the QR code. We'll field them throughout the discussion. On our panel, we have Mike Baker. He's Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Officer at PGIM. They have about $1.4 trillion in assets under management. We have Kristen Bassett. She's Chief Data Officer at Zurich North America, major player in commercial insurance with notable projects like Madison Square Garden, as well as the Hoover Dam. And we have Jude Schramm. He's Chief Information Officer at Fifth Third Bank. It's about the 15th largest bank in the US. They have close to $250 billion in assets. So let's get into this AI discussion and how it's impacting the industry. Let's kick things off with Jude. Jude, you have a business that spans commercial banking, consumer lending, wealth management, a lot of different areas.
Yep.
How are you organizing, coordinating, approaching your AI strategy?
Yeah, thanks, Neeraj. So we started a couple years ago with our Gen AI strategy, and we really have centered it around four main pillars. We have AI focused on the employee base, where we've rolled out generative AI tools like Microsoft Copilot, like most companies have, with the focus to really bring up the IQ of everyone around just the use of generative AI in a normal work environment. We have a second pillar that is really focused on our engineering staff, where we've rolled out AI tools for engineers to really advance the way that they're using prompts and accepting it, and really accelerating our ability to create product and get it to market. We have a third pillar that is really focused on our business processes. How can generative AI come in and really look at the way we run the company across all three lines of business, and bring generative AI in to really think about the acceleration of efficiency and productivity of our workforce. And then fourth and finally is AI for our customers, and how are we introducing it safely and soundly to our customer base, not only to create a great experience for them, but to give them a chance to really create a self-service environment for all of our customers interacting with generative AI.
That sounds pretty comprehensive. Can you take us back to the early days on how you kicked this off?
Yeah, so in the very early days, really, if you think almost, really 18 to 24 months ago, which feels like the early days in this space, we really started with just internal experimentation. We have some leaders that we brought in from the outside that came in that are, I think, leading folks in the AI space. And we've been just really starting with self-experimentation using things like just generally available capabilities and tools, trying to learn how large language models even worked, and how we could understand how they're going to make their way into the industry, and what are some of the risks that you have to manage through when you think about what does this really introduce as a new environment for us to introduce a technology that, to be quite frank, we didn't know a lot about. And so it was a very early days of experimentation, learning, but in a safe environment, so that we could then feel comfortable starting with the employees and rolling that out first. And we're kind of making our way from the employees through to the business process and eventually getting to the customer. That's going to be the last foray for us, because it's the one we have to feel the most confident about before we really turn something like AI, broadly usable across our customer-facing platforms.
Interesting. And how does it look from your eyes, Kristen, in terms of approaching AI? Being in the commercial insurance space, you have a breadth of customers, from construction industry all the way to transportation to marine. You have a lot of range in product as well. Mm-hmm. Typical life insurance, casualty, property. How are you able to approach AI?
Well, we really think about it in terms of how will AI or any other tool help us achieve our business strategies. And so when we're looking at that and looking at the business use cases around each of those, we're thinking about, similar to you, how does it make our employees more efficient? How does it bring better insights forward? How does it help our customers manage their risk better? And so we try to take that lens through the way that we're deploying really any tools, but specifically AI, is how we can power further our business strategies and service our customers better.
Interesting. And how has it evolved or changed from your early days?
Well, I think similar to what you said, Gen AI really came out, well, even taking a step back, we've been using AI for decades, right? If you think of AI in the context of machine learning and some of the modeling that we've had, that's been widespread for a long time. The Gen AI really came out maybe, like you said, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And that's the piece that's really changed the landscape quite a bit. And so when you think about how quickly people can do things using those tools, and how the things that are highly manual, highly labor intensive can be simplified through the Gen AI tools that we can give to our employees, it's really got a lot of ability to transform the way we do work and interact with each other.
Mike, is this the same type of process that you're pursuing in the asset management business? Once again, there's a lot of variety in terms of investment classes, equities, fixed income, real estate, private capital. I can imagine AI is different for each of those product groups, but are you starting in terms of employee process and then customer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the categorization of how we think about it is very similar. So we look at a couple different areas, like the first being productivity. So how do we help our employees be more productive? And this is through things like Office 365, or 30% of the code that we generate now is actually generated by AI. Then we have other things like knowledge information. So if you think about what our wholesalers use to go out to the market, today they just use their phone with AI on it. They used to have to carry binders of information with them around competitive information, how our products match up with returns of other products, and that's just all online now. Automation is another area, whether that be through operations. If you think about, at least for the way we think about it, is we're in this second turning of AI. The first one was where AI was in this kind of contained black box, and you could talk to it. The second one is where we're actually marrying things like RPA with AI. And now we're actually able to talk through what's called MCP out to other things. So now we're building an ecosystem of automation through AI. And the third turning for us is going to be when these things actually start talking together. And then the last one is really around data and analytics. And this is where portfolio managers are now getting better insights into investment decisions. But for us, we always have a human in the loop today. We don't want investment decisions to be made automatically in the process and commit capital without a human in the loop. So that's very important to us today. And then the last thing I would say is, when you look at the importance of data and data governance has never been stronger when we're actually now trying to execute AI, because the quality of that data that's accessible through AI is so important.
You bring up a lot of interesting points, and maybe we'll throw it back to you, Kristen, in terms of this human-in-the-loop concept. Let's look at a core function such as underwriting. That is in a lot of different aspects in banking and insurance. Can you describe that process in terms of the human and machine learning interaction, and how long do you expect the human to remain in that loop?
We also think it's very important for the human to be in the loop. And if you think of the process of working with brokers or working with customers, there's a lot of information that's just coming into an underwriting process. And so a lot of what we're focusing on is just document intelligence, whether it's extraction or summarization or comparison, or just how do you help people manage that information exchange in a more efficient way so you can have better conversations faster with the brokers or with the customers. And so that is a very different capability that Gen AI has brought to the table versus maybe the more traditional AI, which might have been deployed in, say, a pricing model or something like that. Either way, I think it's very important to us. We also have human in the loop as an important part of managing our process and an important part of just understanding the risk and managing that, because we want our people to be the decision makers. And we expect that will continue for a while anyway.
Mike, on those points that Kristen has mentioned in terms of human in the loop and underwriting, how about in the investment strategy, policy making? Do you see that as one of the type of functions that the human will be in the loop versus AI tools for a very long runway?
Yeah, I don't see a time yet where the human will be replaced by AI in the sense of making those investment decisions. I think right now AI is bringing a tremendous amount of insights into that data, allowing us to make good investment decisions. But where we see humans kind of coming out of that loop to actually allow people to do other types of work is in things like operations and automation. So it's around being able to process, unstructured data that might come in an operations process where you want to automate that. But in the past, that was really hard to do without humans, but AI allows us to do that now.
Interesting. And maybe we'll hop to a different function. Jude, how are the financial advisors balancing AI and technology in their workflow?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, from a financial advisor standpoint today, we are probably still more in the more traditional AI lens of how we're utilizing the technology, because it's important for us to be able to make sure that we have the reliable, I'd say, technology that they've been using to understand models and how risk management's happening. We're giving that type of advice. I think as AI comes into our space and we use it, one of the things we've done is we've really tried to build into our policies and the procedures how AI can inform things like model risk management, and how model risk management can then inform the advisors about how they're actually going to be able to bring more of that capability into their decision criteria. But today, honestly, in the world we live in, it's probably a step too far from where we're going all in on AI and from a Gen AI perspective, because we want to understand how we're going to manage the risk and how we're going to make sure that we're mitigating that in the standpoint of like just the day-to-day interactions with our customers and how we're advising them.
Okay, and you previously mentioned that the customer experience in terms of pushing features or products is very early.
Yep.
Can you give us a percentage in terms of what percent of the financial advisors are using an AI-generated financial plan for their customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you think about our financial advisors as they're reaching out to customers today, we use AI-powered ways to give them information. Mike talked about unstructured data. We have a lot of good information about our customers. So in the old days, in a financial advisor, they'd have a call list and a call tree, and they're just calling and calling and calling and calling on what I'd say is just generic product offerings. Today, with AI, what we're able to do is two things. We can give them very specific products that would help our customers based off of understanding what they're doing, what their spending habits are, what their buying habits are, those types of things. So instead of me just randomly calling you for any random product that we may have, whether it be a credit card or a HELOC or something, we now know that probably the most likely product that we can help you from your financial well-being is a second mortgage or a HELOC or something. And we can very specifically and intentionally call you and talk about those products with you instead of just random. And then the last thing on that I'd say is we're even taking some of that and putting it into our digital channels so that now it's not just a financial advisor calling you. You log into our digital channels, whether it be your mobile app or the web app, and that same product can get to you that way without the advisor in the middle, and we can deliver it in a couple different ways.
Yeah, I would add to that. If you look at on the Prudential side, on the insurance side, we're seeing some really exciting things where our call centers, as an example, AI is actually listening to the call and providing next best action, right? So it's a much better experience for people that are calling in, and for us, it's it's a time of need for our clients, and giving them a great experience is really important.
Yeah, we all should, I think, be thinking about AI in terms of driving the customer experience first. That's the lens that's going to matter most at the end of the day.
Another function that we'll talk about, maybe Kristen, claim processing. This seems like a very good case for automation. Can you give us a little bit of history where we are and where it's going with AI?
Yeah, I mean, claims is another area that's very information intensive, right? There's a lot of things coming in from customers, lawyers, doctors, all different parties, and the claims people are trying to manage all that information and also come up with the correct outcome for us and for our customers. And so it is a very rich place in a few different ways. I think, Mike, you mentioned operations. How do you make that more efficient? Because we have people taking those first calls. We have people bringing in that information from the customers. How do you manage your vendor spend, your legal spend? How do you look at all of those documents, like I mentioned before, for document intelligence? But there's also a real piece here as you look at workforce continuity. There's a real benefit in a lot of these tools in terms of consistency across a large workforce, as well as just how do you onboard new people more quickly because they have better access to that information that's right at their fingertips now that they may have had to know where to search for it or know how to find that. So I think there's several different places where this is making a difference in the industry.
Interesting. Let's pivot a little bit and put pressure on Mike to put on his CTO hat. And how is the tech infrastructure stacking up? We understand the financial service industry likes to customize their tech stack. How difficult is it to change into an AI tech stack?
Yeah, so at PGIM, we're going through actually a pretty large transformation. And that transformation, and AI is kind of embedded in that transformation. And I would say one of the most important parts of this is the data ecosystem that feeds AI. Having a standard governance process around our data and more standard platforms to give this new technology access to really is going to change the speed that we can move at and support our clients and create new opportunities. So it is challenging, right? Because with any company, there's quite a bit of technical debt that happens over time. So how do we actually focus on, making the right decisions to move a lot of that into a platform that's accessible to this new innovative technology?
And there's a lot of balancing here in terms of third-party tools versus internal development. Jude, how is Third Bank approaching that?
Yeah, we've got a bi-partner build strategy, and you could talk about this for an hour, but basically the way I think about it is, in this AI space, there's going to be, I think, places where you want to partner very well, like I mentioned earlier with something like Microsoft for a Copilot. There's no need for me to go build Copilot myself. Where I'm delivering new capabilities to customers, like our chatbots that are going on our mobile apps and those types of things, we're looking to build on our public cloud because we've already taken and abstracted all of the services up to the mobile platform anyways into the public cloud. So the accessibility to those capabilities tied to our AI platforms that can be directly plugged into those allow us to start to extend what AI and Gen AI are going to be able to do for our customers and create a much better and more seamless experience. And we want to own that experience and we want to deliver that to our customers. And then you look at like the back in the business applications, we were talking about this backstage, like every one of our partners that we work with are introducing AI into their platforms. Knowing how they're introducing it, how we can utilize it to maximize efficiency and maximize our effectiveness is the third strategy for us that we've got to be really good at because it's changing so fast. You got to keep in front of it, but the idea in those spaces are, again, I don't want to build something that isn't going to add value to the customer. And I want to find great partners where I can to be more efficient in the long term because they can plug into the modernization of our tech stack as well.
I do think there's a lot of these AI companies are kind of leapfrogging each other right now.
Yeah.
And you could be in, POC purgatory with kind of doing so many POCs and never seeing these to kind of real production or impact.
That's right.
So, we've taken the tact of saying, okay, let's standardize on an AI platform that we can buy, but also be able to build on top of, right? So we're using things like Microsoft Fabric as an example as our data analytics platform that allows us to do analytics, but also allows us to do data science, allows us to do data insights. So it's kind of for us, it's the best of both worlds between buy and build that we're able to use that one standard platform.
Yeah, and I think it's similar for us too. I think that the space is changing so dramatically. Things that were cutting edge 18 months ago are commoditized, right? So the cost of buying things just is really changing all the time. And so part of that challenge is to understand what that environment looks like and then really understand who your major partners are, who are the vendors that you really want those capabilities built in that you can leverage, and then where do you add that unique value from a building perspective that you can layer on to really drive your agenda forward.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of different topics to discuss here, and one comes to mind I want to make sure we get to. It's probably on the tip of everybody's mind, compliance. Compliance, we'll put that on your table, Kristen. You have to deal with a lot of state-by-state regulators. Is AI helping reduce the compliance burden, or are new challenges overwhelming the kind of reduction?
Yeah, and I'm sure compliance is the most exciting topic of the day today. I think there are things that it makes easier and things it makes harder. I think, if you think of someone who's working in their job and there's guidelines that they're trying to do and regulation, you can bring a lot of information forward to those people in a much more seamless way. And so in that way, it helps compliance. You can, help build rules out that will have flags, those sorts of things. But I think Mike mentioned earlier, and we were talking about, this is a different way to model. It's a different way that you're interacting with the data, and it takes a different type of governance to actually support that. And so really all companies are setting up AI governance frameworks, AI policies, because it is a different approach. And the states are publishing their own new regulations or new guidelines for compliance that we're all working through. So I think it's an evolving space. I think it is a very important space that everyone is investing in, and we'll see how it settles out as we go through and learn through it.
And it's not just states. When you know, so we operate in many jurisdictions around the world.
Right.
So EU AI Act, you know, how do you manage that against California?
Exactly.
Right? So
Versus New York.
There's so many going on, right? We look at it like a risk-based framework that we use around when we apply, you know, ethical AI and the governance that goes along with it is based on a risk framework that we really focus on.
And we have a similar framework that's set up that way, so you can evaluate where you need a lot more rigorous evaluation of the models and where it's really a low risk, straightforward compliance thing.
We have some questions coming in, and let's get to maybe Gen AI usage on portfolio analytics. Mike, where are we today?
Yeah, so we're seeing our portfolio managers today, they actually, they used to have to, you know, they come in and run the reports or look at their portfolios, and, you know, they look into the data and say, okay, where's my risk number? And today we're actually using AI to summarize that information for them. So they're actually getting an early look of their portfolios, like when they're driving into work, they actually, you know, can actually see this, or it can tell them what, you know, what their portfolio looks like. So the data insights are becoming very useful through AI, whether that be summarization of risks. The other thing that we're starting to see is the marrying of things like machine learning and Gen AI, because the data that comes out of machine learning fed into an AI model actually helps having more conversational kind of output to those models. So we're seeing a number of different ways that people are leveraging this technology from a portfolio management view.
In insurance, how do you view Gen AI in terms of the biggest potential impact?
It's hard to think of a way that we won't be impacted, really. I mean, because we talked about some of the operational ways. We talked about the portfolio analytics. That's going to be a big driver, the product innovation. So I think it's going to be, and you had talked about the employees, right, and how that's going to change your job experience. So I think it's going to be very transformational across. I think some of the biggest ways, really, though, is when you think of the customer impact and how much, you know, our people will get out of the manual tasks and be available to actually solve problems for our customers. That is really a huge difference maker in terms of the way the insurance industry can respond to the risk management needs of everyone. And so I think that really has a terrific amount of potential to make a difference.
Let's get a little insight here on the last point about AI implementation and maybe AI efficiency. How are you benchmarking it today? Are there any specific use cases, Jude, that you can cite?
Yeah, we think about the efficiency, and we've been at this for a couple years. I'm a longtime Lean Six Sigma guy, so we do run a lot of value streams within our bank, looking at the processes and looking at all of the aspects of where waste comes in it. AI for us is going to become the next evolution of how we think about creating that efficiency. And so we measure that in two ways. We measure it in terms of true productivity. How are we enabling either costs to come out of the bank so we can then reinvest that cost back into newer things like AI? Or revenue acceleration. Can we get to market faster? Can we get there more efficiently in a way that allows us to bring revenue into the bank quicker? So it's really, both of those dynamics are contributing to how we're thinking about not just how AI will come in to those different ecosystems within the bank, but also how do we use that as a reinvestment mechanism back into continue to fund and grow the AI use within the company.
Just last point, Mike and Kristen here. The budget, how are you managing AI spend? It seems to be up and to the right. Where are you taking it away to fund those projects?
Everyone has a budget, and so I think we're all constrained by that, just like everyone else is in their job. And for us, we really look at, how does this help our business get better? And whether it's AI or other types of technology, how does this drive our business strategy, and what is the business use case? And we prioritize it in that way. So any of those could float to the top, depending on the use case, really. And but the important thing at the end of the day is those use cases that the businesses own and how it can help them with their strategies.
Yeah, I would add, we're looking at it in how do we go from run the business to change the business? And this is where, these last two questions actually come together. If you look at productivity, a great example of where our research team spends about 14 days doing a deep research on a competitive company, whether it be prospectus information or fund information. A lot of this now with AI, we went from 14 days to 6 hours, right? Huge productivity impact, and that allows us to now refocus the dollars that we would have spent on that on more impactful things. So we're, in a case, almost self-funding a lot of this through the productivity changes from run to change.
Well, there you have it, guys, from our expert panelists. Thank you.
Next up is our Spotlight session. That's from our sponsor, Rocket Software. Please join me in welcoming back to the stage as President and CEO Milan Shetty. He'll be joined in conversation with Sean O'Cullough. He is the Director of Offensive Cybersecurity for Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation.
Thank you again for joining us today. So I'm here with Sean O'Cullough, who is doing his part to keep our financial markets secure. So Sean, tell us a lot more about yourself and your role at DTCC, and also what DTCC does.
That's a good question. Good question. So DTCC is a significantly important financial market utility. Obviously a critical component for U.S. and world markets. My role there is I run the offensive cybersecurity team, which is comprised inside the Threat Management Center. That's run by our CISO, and we have the SOC and Operations Center. We have kind of this red team, so it's kind of a blue team, red team, purple team. We have a separate team that monitors the content and controls for that blue team. And we spend our time trying to gain access, right? We're emulating nation-state actors inside our environment and seeing how those threat chains play out.
Wow. So sounds like there's a lot of DTCC, and it plays a very pivotal role in the financial industry, just like the volume of the data and the platforms and everything which you work with.
Certainly. So there's many very sensitive segments inside the network, a lot of specialized technologies, but we're responsible for quadrillions of transactions per year, millions of transactions a second. So, obviously it's a very critical space.
How do you pick in that space a partner to partner with, and what kind of activities and the criteria goes in choosing a software partner or a hardware partner?
So our pen test methodology is to emulate threat actors around the world, right? Incidents that we see take place in other financial companies and other tech companies around the world. So this program has been running for more than 10 years, and our quest to find kind of the best of breed, the best testers to implement our team in these very specialized, restricted segments is really key. It's to form relationships with those guys and work with them year after year has certainly been a challenge. It takes us years to validate a vendor, to onboard a vendor, but moreover to build a relationship with them and understand with those testers, those employees, what their capabilities are. You gotta, understand their limitations and be able to trust them in those environments.
So as we were talking about it in the backstage here, that Rocket Software, so we take pride in not being considered a software vendor, but a software partner. But we have over a long-standing relationship in the security.
Certainly.
So over a decade or so?
Over a decade.
Wow. So as we're talking about the innovation and modernization without disruption, and how do you see the domain of cybersecurity, and you've been in the offensive side of the cybersecurity and trying to prevent the threat actors, and AI, like, do they intersect? Do they not intersect? Or how does that look like in the financial markets?
Yeah, so much to talk about there. So certainly, I'm also the founder and chair for the Pentest Managers Group as part of FSISAC. And over the years, I've certainly seen certainly financial companies, but other tech companies that have started independent pen test groups inside their companies and have been very innovative in that space. So I see that more and more. I think over the next couple of years, I think it's just going to be a standard, just like vulnerability management. But with AI, we don't have a ton of models inside DTCC. We have a ton of controls. It's something we're heavily looking at. We've certainly leveraged AI to do some components to our pen testing, certainly around surveillance and discovery. I would like to see over the next couple of years how AI is going to play a role in the defenses, like on the security operations side, as far as triggering alerts and processing logs, and that's going to be very interesting how that plays out. Much to my detriment, as it's going to hurt us. But certainly, and there's been some frameworks and some preliminary tools around testing of AI that we've seen, and we've done some of that in our environment.
And it's an amazing story on what you have done at DTCC. And if I know your platform, you still have, you talk about modernization without disruption. You're doing all of the security platform on mainframes for this high transaction volume. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's certainly hard to find. That's one of the hardest environments to find specialists in that actually are best of breed. So I mean, I can't emphasize how good Rocket was in that space. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sean, for taking time with us. Thank you, everyone, for taking time with us. And Sean, thank you for continue to make our financial market secure. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are under a lot of pressure. Build this, upgrade that, cut costs, and don't forget to secure your data. With Rocket Software, you can uncover insights with the power of AI, boost performance and streamline processes, and optimize and innovate with hybrid cloud. That's modernization without disruption. That's Rocket Software.
Good afternoon. Welcome everyone here in New York office. There is no shortage of excitement or fear about AI in the banking industry, from apocalyptic headlines about job losses to breathless predictions about AI converting financial services into autonomous services. AI is almost everywhere. But there is a reality. The conversations right now are not grounded in hard data, and that is something we wanted to change in Bloomberg Intelligence. We surveyed global banks, not about AI hype, but about AI usage, about AI strategies, innovations, AI expectations, and budgets. We wanted to understand where the banks are investing their money into AI, why do they invest over there, what returns they're expecting, and how they measure the returns. This is very important to understand this, as we want to identify winners and the losers of the most exciting tech race that the banking industry is facing at the moment. And why? Because there's a truth. Banks have to invest in AI if they want to be competitive. Capital is limited. Return on investments, ROIs, are very difficult to measure. And blindly following the crowd may prove a very costly strategy for many banks globally. My name is Tomasz Necel. I'm a senior equity analyst covering European banking sector and payment companies, tech companies in Europe. I'm very glad to be here and present to you the findings of our survey and how the AI is impacting banking from analyst perspective. So let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Key takeaways. So our analysis is showing that the bank's profitability can be boosted by more than 12% in the near term, or by as much as $100 billion. This is through AI-driven productivity gains. This is compelling structural upside, potentially the most significant since the bank started their digital transformation more than 20 years ago. But only a fraction of that upside will be materialized if investments are flawed and fragmented. The costs are rising. Technology budgets are rising from moving away from 17% of total operating expenses for global banks to average of 20%, largely driven by AI investments and cloud infrastructure. And yet, there is still little data to assess what sort of returns these investments are bringing. So yes, there is optimism, there's opportunity. Is opportunity real? But to capture this opportunity, we need focus, rigorous execution, and investment accountability. So to build our analysis, we surveyed CIOs, CTOs, and tech leads of 93 global banks. Over 50% of those companies manage 50 to 250 billions of assets, and the respondents span Europe, North America, Latin America, and Asia. This diverse base gives us confidence that we are capturing views not only of large institutions with large tech budgets, but also we take a view from smaller institutions with smaller budgets, but these institutions which are more agile, but also more exposed and vulnerable to AI threats and risks. Now, let's follow the money. So global banks are projected to increase their AI investments double-fold in the next 3 years. The AI investment by global banks are expected to reach more than 80 billion in 2028. Most of this growth is driven by European and US banks. This is huge 50 billion gambit, and a clear sign that banks believe in AI. While this is a very impressive number, more spending is not the same as better outcomes. So if there is no proper ROE framework, this could lead to another very costly tech race for the banking sector globally. Let's now look where AI tools, most specifically Gen AI tools, are used. So there is a gap between usage and hype. Almost 45% of respondents reported that they have not yet deployed AI, or AI is just at the proof of concept stage. Integration challenges, regulation, legacy IT systems, it is all holding back deployment and investments. Yet, by 2026, our respondents says that 70% of respondents say they expect Gen AI to be critical to their business. This is a very massive leap in expectations, and it has to be managed carefully. It is reflecting breakthrough to LLM and potential to transform compliance, regulation, customer interaction, and document workflows. But that adds also pressure for the banks to integrate quickly, to align business with goals, and as well to comply with the evolving regulation. Now let's move towards more P&L analysis. I'm an analyst, so I like to look at the numbers to understand what's happening with the banking sector. So more than 80% of the banking surveyed by us, they claim that they will improve productivity or revenue generation by more than 5% in the next 3 to 5 years. We believe this is a bullish statement, bullish outlook, but again, optimism is not a strategy. Bank must translate these gains into measurable P&L impact. Otherwise, they're risking overinvesting on a project that will deliver very soft returns. And here's some good news. AI is about enabling transforming. It is not just about eliminating of jobs. Our survey shows that only 3% of roles will be eliminated or cut in the next 3 to 5 years. This translates to around 200,000 jobs at risk. To put that in perspective, 10 largest European banks fired almost 30,000 people in 2024. So this 2,100 number is not really big in grand scheme of things. So AI will reshape roles, automate routine tasks, and elevate decision making. But the further shift will definitely require a further reskilling of the teams and changes in internal management. The human side of AI is equally important as the tech side, in our view. But the path to productivity gains and reskilling is not easy, and it will be quite expensive. It's not cheap. More than 40% of our banks expect that the cost base will be rising in the near future. Cloud migration, system overhaul, hiring new people, these are all front-loaded investments. These are not just one-off purchases, but strategic investment that will stretch budget in near term before they start saving those cost base in the near future, and will help banks bolster their productivity gains and efficiencies, most importantly. So AI is a long-term game, definitely, and the winners likely will be those who are investing through the cycle, not around the cycle. Execution risk is also high, and the barriers to succeed also are mounting. This slide is capturing the major pain points. As you can see, it is, of course, lack of skilled personnel, integration with existing systems, data privacy and data security, and high cost of technology. AI is powerful, but it is only as effective as ecosystem it is operating in. If you don't have data governance in place, if you don't have skilled personnel, skilled team, even the best models may prove to be failure, and they will not deliver returns you are expecting. This chart is showing how dramatically attention of AI has grown in the recent years amongst analysts. So mentions of AI and machine learning in banks' earnings call has risen 5 times since pandemic, but more mentions doesn't mean there's more value. The risk is narrative inflation. Lots of where investors are pressuring banks, and they are forced to report something AI related, but they don't give a specific AI strategy or KPI to measure their strategy. We also asked the banks where do they see AI will have the most significant impact on their businesses, and top 5 here are risk management, fraud detection, enhanced data analytics, customer service, and back office. This seems to be concrete, high ROI domains, and banks are most likely to double down on those projects before they chase more speculative cases. This is quite a sobering slide, which is showcasing that 60% of the tech budget right now is spent on legacy IT. Only 40% goes to new technologies like AI or cloud infrastructure. This reflects the structural drag that many banks are facing globally. Some banks have very big, high AI ambitions, but if they don't modernize their legacy systems, this will lead to stalled deployments and very flat ROIs. The banks are spending at the moment 17% of the operating expenses on technology, and that is rising, and this is possibly going to rise to as much as 20% in the near future, according to our analysis. Tech costs are the second largest cost base for the banks at the moment, which is underscoring the urgency of allocating capital quite wisely and effectively. This slide just showing that the banks are not cutting on technology budgets, even though revenue outlook is fading because of declining interest rates and trade wars at the moment. More than 60% of the banks are planning to increase the IT spending in 2025 by more than 5%. This is more than 2 to 3% total cost growth expected by global banks in the next few years, and it is more than personal expenses. It is just showcasing that the banks are very much committed to invest in technology, and they will be looking savings somewhere else to fund the new projects. Now let's have a look where those dollars are actually allocated and deployed. So over the past 2 years, cloud and data analytics dominated spend. It is not surprising, and the AI came as a third. That was expected as the banks have laying, plumbing, and now the shift to AI services means they will be requesting, or they will be requiring some returns from those investments in the near future. And that possibly will be discussed during the earnings call with the banks in the coming quarters. And just like AI, overall technology mentions in the bank's earnings call have been on the rise since almost 2013-14 in the last decade. As analysts want to better understand how the banks are allocating money and what sort of returns they can expect from those investments. That is also reinforcing our view that the digitization technology AI spend is not only about back office. It is more like a boardroom priority, and this is becoming a key strategy for every bank global if they want to stay competitive. Looking ahead, robotic process automation is to see the highest increase in technology budgets. By contrast, blockchain and cryptocurrencies are at the bottom of the priority list, which is showing and signaling to us that banks are moving or staying away from speculative technology bets, and they rather bet money on projects that can deliver some returns, which is good to see as well. Let's move. And the final, so what we ask the bank, what is the motive for your investment spending in the next 2-3 years? So as you can see, cost, productivity gains, scalability are top priority, but also customer experience and regulatory pressures is as well amongst the top priorities where the bank have to, and that's why the bank have to invest in technology. I think what is notable from this slide is the fact that it is not just about savings, it is about creating future-ready infrastructure for the banks to compete, not only working together in the banking industry, but also banks to compete with the fintech space, because lots of fintech companies are cutting into the banking business and trying to eat the cake in terms of the revenues. So to close, coming back to my original question, is AI hype or is it opportunity? We believe that AI is real, it is transformative force, but $180 billion dollar upside is very much conditional. For the bank to capture this opportunity, they have to align AI investments to ROIs, they have to modernize their technology stacks, they have to upskill the teams, and most importantly, they have to commit capital through the cycle, not around the cycle. With this slide, I would like to conclude my presentation. There is much more in the pack, which is published on Bloomberg Terminal, so I'm very happy to share this with you. I also have a couple of copies available to hand out today during the receptions if you are interested. Thank you very much, and hopefully you have a great day, the rest of the day.
Okay, it is now time for my special guest. This is Hillary Packer. She's the Executive Vice President, also Chief Technology Officer over at American Express. I am so excited to talk to you today.
I'm so excited to be here. I spent a lot of my career building trading systems on trading floors, so to know that I'm inside the Bloomberg terminal right now, that's a treat.
It's exciting.
That's a treat. That's like a career moment.
I love it. I love it. When we were talking earlier, I mean, technology, right? Constantly changing. It's hard to keep up. Like, it can be intimidating at times. But what you said earlier to me really stood out because, one, it ties into the theme of today. But you said that you have to embrace continuous modernization because it's the best way to avoid disruption.
Yeah.
So what did you mean by that? Explain.
Yeah, think about it in your personal lives, right? Think about how many times years ago you were afraid to update your cell phone.
Yeah.
Right? And you thought, oh, this is going to be a thing, and it's going to take hours, and who knows, it might be a brick when I'm done, and I don't want to do it. But now, how many of you just hit update?
Yeah.
How many of you just auto-update, right? Now think of your software stack, right? The more you do it, the more continuously you modernize, the less risky it is, and the less of a challenge it is. So we think about continuous modernization. And so we think about constantly and consistently upgrading and modernizing our systems. So we don't think of it as a one-time event that happens every 10 years. We think about a continuous investment in that. We actually invest 25% of our technology investment into modernizing our platforms. And something that's really unique about American Express is, I know a lot of places we think about, okay, well, I got the 1-year investment, but the project's going to take me a few years. What do I do? We think in advance about that multi-year investment. And we say, okay, let's commit to it. Let's not say we're funding year 1 and then good luck in year 2. But let's think, okay, this is a multi-year investment. Let's make sure that we're committing to the whole thing end to end.
Double down, yeah.
Right? And so we think about that continuous modernization. And one of the key things about American Express is we built sort of a foundational technology layer. And that foundational technology layer is everything from security systems, frameworks, core infrastructure that we then build our modernized platforms on top of. And I'll give you an example of how that pays off. We have something called the Intuitive Servicing Portal. So you think about American Express, one of the things we're really well known for, we're super proud of, is our customer service. right? And we want to give our customer service agents, what we call CCPs, customer care professionals, the best tools possible, so that when you call in and you have a question about our products or services, we have a holistic view of our customer, 360 degrees when you call in. How do we do that? We brought together 17 different legacy platforms into a single platform called the Intuitive Servicing Portal, a single pane of glass for our CCPs. And it's built on this foundation of reusable, scalable, modern technology. And that, so, okay, that's cool, right? But what that allowed us to do, because of the reusability of it, is we were able to launch the Intuitive Servicing Portal in 6 months, where normally and traditionally a project like that would take 18 to 24 months.
Wow, big difference.
Yeah, exciting.
It is, it is. Now, we were talking about what's also exciting is everyone's been talking about AI, right? Implementing AI, but data is really the key to that. I mean, you have to have good data. So what's the process for that? I mean, that ties into a question we have from the audience about, you know, is this done in phases? What's your strategy when it comes to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Data is the holy grail of AI. It's the classic garbage in, garbage out, right? You can have the best idea for an AI platform, and if you don't have the data to power that AI platform, you're not going to get anything useful out. We're very lucky. We have a strong foundation of data within the company. Data powers everything that we do, every decision that we make, the way we personalize products for our customers, think about offers and how personalized they are for you. And we have a big foundation in AI. We've been doing traditional AI since 2010. Okay. And at about the same time, we launched our first big data environment. And so we've been building on that all the way through. And that was a great foundation for us for Gen AI. But you think about phases, get started on data now. One of the things that's really interesting about Gen AI is that we probably all have a history of structured data and getting structured data clean and correct and accessible. Gen AI brings in a whole new set of data, unstructured data. And you think about what that means. One of the biggest challenges with unstructured data is it correct? Right? We have a use case that we're really proud of where we said, okay, we're going to power how our customer service is able to access knowledge. So we have a knowledge base. It's been around for years. The biggest work went into cleaning up the knowledge base articles and saying, are they correct? When a human looks at the screen, the human intuitively knows very quickly, oh yeah, that article's old, don't click on it. We know that that's not the right answer. The AI has no idea. So the AI is going to surface whatever is in there, and you have to clean up that data quickly, right? The other thing about data cleanup that you need to do, especially with unstructured data, is accessibility, permissioning.
That's big.
Right? You think about AI is going to be really awesome at saying, okay, I want to write a brief about this project that's going on in the company, and it has access to all of the data in the company. Mm-hmm. Right now, people don't know where to find certain articles, and so it may not have permissions, but it can't be found easily. The AI will quickly find all of that. And so even before you have the use cases, you can start cleaning all of these things up and creating a really great data platform, especially your unstructured data, that'll be key to some of the use cases that you want to power.
Now let's get into some of the use cases. Where are you finding it the most useful?
Yeah, so we've been on our journey for a couple of years now, like many of you, and we started with areas that are very common and what you read about all the time, customer service, right, yeah, and technology. So in technology, I can give you some exciting data that we found. And many people are probably working with some kind of coding assistance, code generation. We've deployed a coding assistant tool to all of our engineers, over 9,000 people. And we're seeing great success with it. We survey our engineers to say, is it making you more productive? And do you like it? And that's one of the things that we found, and it's really important to us, is we don't just want to roll out AI to make it better. Mm-hmm. Better includes, are you enjoying your job? And so our engineers are consistently telling us, we've been surveying them pretty regularly. They're probably tired of the surveys, but we've been surveying them.
But they're tough critics.
They're very tough critics, right, and that's a great point. We're seeing, up until the most recent feature that we rolled out, which I'll mention in a second, we were seeing consistent 10% productivity gains over 9,000 people, which is impressive, and 85 to 90% satisfaction. And engineers are tough critics.
Yeah.
So to get 85 to 90% satisfaction is impressive. We've now rolled out a chat capability, kind of a talk to your code capability, and we're seeing the productivity numbers go up even more. Early data shows probably about 15% versus the 10% previously. Shifting gears to customer service,
Right.
One of the areas that American Express is known for is travel, right? If you're a Platinum or Centurion card member, you get access to our great travel counselors. They're amazing. We rolled out generative AI tools to give high quality and efficient travel recommendations, in addition to the specialized knowledge that our travel counselors have. We've rolled it out to over 5,000 travel counselors, and they're saying 85% of them are saying that it's giving better customer interactions and better recommendations to our customers. I'm actually a Platinum Card member myself, and I'm planning a girls' weekend to Nashville for a friend's
Nice.
birthday, and I'm planning on calling our travel counselors and putting it to action and seeing
if it works and how it works.
seeing how great it is, and
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
what kind of great weekend they're going to put together for me out of the use of the products that we put on their desks.
That's amazing. So how exactly does that work? I mean, so do you put, I want to go to Nashville and I want to, how exactly does it work?
Yeah, right now it's in front of our travel counselors themselves. And so they put in all kinds of, we've given them sample prompts that they can use while they're learning, so that it takes a little bit to learn how to prompt the engines. And they supplement their own knowledge, because they're travel experts to begin with the generative AI suggestions. If you call in for, I want to go to Rome, travel counselors are going to have a lot of expertise in Rome. If you call in that I want to go to Saskatchewan, they might have fewer experiences with that, but Gen AI can supplement that, and that's an amazing
Excellent.
thing.
Now, working with these two, so how do you train your workforce to learn this new technology?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one of the things that's really important is bringing your workforce along. You heard The Economist just talk about, how many jobs are going to be replaced by AI, right? And there's a lot of fear.
Sure.
A lot of people are like, hey, what's going to happen to me? So what we've tried to do is infuse learning all throughout the organization. So everything from self-driven learning. We have Slack channels where people are talking about, oh, hey, I read this cool article last night. Did anybody else read it? Or I tried this out at home. Who else has learned about this? All the way through to learning days across the enterprise, where we brought in external speakers. You always want to get that external perspective, as well as our own experts that can talk about what we're doing within the company. In addition, we created sandboxes where people can experiment, right? You can train people all you want. It's like learning a language, right? You learn a language, but until you travel and speak with other people in that language, you're not really sure how much you learn that language. I don't really speak Spanish. I claim to speak Spanish. When I go to Spain, I realize how little I actually speak Spanish. And so what we do is we actually now are training people on the tools that we're putting in front of them. We heard on the earlier panel about embedded AI, right?
Okay.
AI that's starting to show up in the tools that people are already using. There might be custom tools that we're putting in front of people, and we're giving specific training on that. We did, with our engineers, we did this really cute thing. We thought, oh, they're engineers. We'll just roll out the coding assistants. They'll figure out how to use it. It'll be easy. And then the engineers were like, can you tell me how to use this? And we realized that we needed to actually do a whole enablement process, right? Teach people not just how the tool works, how to get the best out of the tools. This is a new skill. And the last thing I'll say on training and empowering is we chose early on to not have a core central team that's building all the use cases. We want to empower all of our teams, business and technology together, to come up with use cases because they're the subject matter experts in how to transform their businesses using AI. And so we make sure that each of those teams understands and has the training so that they can then apply it. It's not like one team over here is doing all the AI work.
Right.
And that's the great thing about Gen AI versus traditional AI. It's really democratizing AI for the entire company.
So is collaboration key to all that, getting different departments, getting everyone involved together?
Without collaboration, you're lost.
Okay.
We early on created a Gen AI council like many companies have. And we thought from the beginning, okay, who do we need to really get to yes and get to success in all of this? And so we brought in a cross-functional team on our Gen AI council. It wasn't just technology or just certain people in the business. We brought in legal, we brought in enterprise strategy, we brought in risk and compliance. From the very beginning, from day one, we all stood shoulder to shoulder and said, let's figure out how to solve this for American Express.
And you're doing all this while trying to stay on brand, too.
Yeah. Yeah, American Express just celebrated its 175th birthday.
Okay.
There's not a lot of companies that have been around that long. And our brand is key to that kind of longevity, right? And being able to innovate over the years. And so I think about AI in many ways as the brand protector, right? And we think about, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of foundational technology. That was one of the first things we did with generative AI is we built a common enablement layer that makes it easy for all of our engineers and all of our business folks that are building AI use cases to be compliant with our brand and compliant with our brand promise of trust, service, and security. And so that AI enablement layer has each one of our risk stripes gets an opportunity, whether it's privacy or information security or other groups, to say, here's what I require in order to be compliant with, you heard in the previous panel about local regulations or countrywide regulations. How do we be compliant with that? How do we protect the data of our customers? How do we protect our own data? And how do we make it easy for people so that each one of the use cases doesn't need to build that individually? And so that's how we protect the brand. And that's how we ensure that everything that we're doing is consistent with our brand, because we build everything on top of this core foundation, and that's sort of our brand brain.
Now, when you look ahead to the future, what are you excited about? Like, there's so many different ways you can go. What trends are you seeing? What keeps you up at night?
Yeah. Anyone heard the word agentic? Anyone? Agentic. Yeah, so agentic AI, and the promise of agentic AI is, I'm really excited about it. It's having AI now work autonomously. Right? We've thought about chatbots and we've thought about small automations. We've thought about transforming our business in these real-time interactions. And now think about agents that can go off and act on your behalf. Think about an agent that says, oh, you want to eat at that restaurant? Let me watch for an available reservation for you at the date and time that you want, and then book it on your behalf. Think about, you want to go on a vacation. I'm planning this trip to Nashville, right? Think about, oh, I want to buy the plane ticket, but only when it's under a certain dollar amount. And authorizing those agents on your behalf to see what's going on in the world and take action on your behalf. That's super exciting. That's the world that's coming. Now, the way we think about it at American Express is we're excited for it. We want to bring these amazing experiences to our customers. We want to power our great assets like dining, like travel, like our experiences using agentic AI. But we also want to make sure that we're protecting our customers and only ever doing things that are consistent with our brand and consistent with what our customers want. So that security element has to be there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What are you worried about with it? Is that...
Yeah, you have to think about guardrails, right? Yeah, you think about yourself, right? Do I want the concert tickets? Well, not at $1,000 each. Maybe I want it at this price, or maybe I want it only if it's in this section and these seats. I want to be in the mosh pit up front with everyone. No, I don't want to be in the nosebleeds. And so how do you create those guardrails in that kind of a foundation layer where you say, okay, here's how I'm going to instruct the agent on what I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do. And that's a new world.
It definitely is. Hillary, thank you. You opened up our eyes to so many new things for today. Stay with us, guys. We have more on tap for you. We have Bloomberg's Diksha Gera. She's going to be moderating a discussion on securing data to safeguard the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How's everyone doing? A very good evening to everyone. I am Diksha Gera, and I lead the payments and fintech coverage for Bloomberg Intelligence. And it's been a busy couple of weeks with earnings and all, but I was really excited about this panel, largely because of the amazing panelists we have. Please join me in welcoming Larry Zelvin, who is the EVP and Head of Financial Crimes at BMO. We have Ranjita Iyer, who heads services for Mastercard in North America. And we have Patty Voigt, who's the CISO at Webster Bank. So let's start with a poll. I think you guys have had enough of being a passive audience. Time to get doing some work now, okay? How many of you work in financial services? Okay, and how many of you work at banks? Interesting. Let me start with a little personal story. It's late in the evening. We were in Kenya for a holiday a couple of years ago, and it was one of the conservancies there. They actually hire local tribes to do the tour guides stuff there. And so this person is taking us around. We're getting to know each other. It's like a nice, safari ride. And he asks us to get us just to kind of understand who we are and what we, how much we are worth. How much land do you have? And I'm like, okay, my husband has some ancestral property, but we're like, we've always lived in cities. We don't have land. Then he was like, oh, where do you keep your cows? Yeah. And at that point, I'm like, okay, there is parts of the world that still has this conversation. So we tell him we don't have any cows, and we are really surprised at this conversation, right? The funny part was, as surprised as we were with him, he was surprised with us. How do you pay for school fees? And I'm like, dude, we put money at a bank, and he was giving us these looks. I could tell he was really judging us on that. But it brought a very fundamental question to my mind. First principles, right? When you first went and put money at a bank, and they gave you a slip of paper saying they owe you this, just think about what it meant. What is a bank if not the trust that you place in it, right? And nowadays, they don't even bother with the slip of paper. It's all online, right? So what proof do you have, sir, that you have that much money with a bank, right? So all of this to just kind of draw home the point that the basic fundamental of financial services is identity and trust. And if it is not for this, we can't exist as an industry. And now imagine when you go into your mobile app and you see every now and then there's a transaction which you have not heard of and you don't know what the hell is going on there. How many of us are going to go back to gold and dollar bills under the pillow? I didn't say crypto. But yeah, let's start with another poll now. How many of you have gotten a message that you haven't paid your toll when you don't even drive, or even if you do? Please raise your hands.
A lot.
I'm in the US and I get this emails from the UK saying that I haven't paid toll. How many of you gotten a call from something that looks like a bank and is not? True that, right? Very relatable. So we have a fairly young audience here. You can thank me later. But anecdotally, some of the largest hit segments of society are the older people who've not been prepared for digital fraud, who are almost embarrassed to admit that they've been struck by a love scam. And that is the challenge that you face, when you're going in as a bank and you're losing their trust to kind of deal with you on a day-to-day basis. So we won't blame them, right, Larry? They were not from an era where, when they first started banking, you needed guns and a team to go and loot a bank, right? Not some 15-year-old in a garage with access to Papa's laptop, right? So it's a very different era. And I was so amazed when we were talking about this, and Larry kind of pointed out, from back in the day to where we are now, where money moves in seconds, how has financial crime evolved?
Well, I think you highlighted it to some degree. I mean, before the internet, you'd actually needed proximity to commit these crimes. I mean, if you just think about robbing a bank, it was really annoying. You had to get a car. You had to get a horse. You had to ride your car or horse to the institution. Once you got to the institution, you had to scare everybody, potentially with a weapon. There might be somebody at the bank who has a weapon. So now you have to face that risk. Then you had to ask for the money, and unfortunately, you'd had to carry it out. It became very inconvenient. Now you had to get back in the car, in the horse. The police could chase you. It was really inconvenient. The great thing about the internet is all that is much easier, right? You don't need a weapon. You can stay in your mother and dad's basement. You can rob 100 banks in the afternoon, and the best news is you can automate it all. So all you have to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy the profits.
See, that's how things have changed, right? So we know how crime has evolved. Patty, how have the bad actors evolved? Like, there's a report from NASDAQ on financial crime that says this is a $485 billion amount of the problem globally. And so this is not petty crime we are talking about, right?
No. These days in the digital environment, huge volumes of transactions of data that are making movement. And I think some of the ones we've seen recently, right? You're now seeing involvement with some of the bad actors using AI, deep fakes, right? And being able to submit something to the executive, the CFO, that looks like it's coming from the CEO, directing them to deposit a certain amount of money. And it is realistic enough and believable that they're actually doing that in some instances, right? And we've seen that a couple times out in the industry. You're also seeing the threat actors, they're working together. Their nation states, their organized crime units, they're working together to be able to partner to leverage kind of ransomware as a service and other malware and other types of phishing environments and bots out there to be able to expand upon it and really bring in some revenue.
Larry, you were talking about organized camps of people in some of the emerging markets, right? That are basically designed to, there's human trafficking involved, and then on top of that, there is financial fraud. Like, can you cite some of those examples?
Sure. Unfortunately, we have a business component and a security component in Asia, and this is prevalent in Asia, but you're also starting to see it in Latin America. But unfortunately, that people are being recruited to places like Cambodia, Myanmar, on these potentially IT jobs, and it sounds very attractive. High-skilled, English language, well-paying. They get to these places and they look like a resort, but in reality, they're fraud farms. It is estimated that hundreds of thousands of people are actually being imprisoned in these farms. They steal their passports. Some cases they're being shackled, not being given food, beaten. They have quotas. So as you heard, when you heard about the tolls, or you're hearing about the banks, or you have potential parking tickets, it could be a dual-edged crime. You actually may be solicited by someone who is imprisoned and is in a human trafficking scheme, and they're not allowed out until they actually made a certain revenue, and even that sometimes is not enough to break free.
So that puts in context what banks are kind of dealing with and fighting in today's world, right? JP Morgan Chase went out and said they actually fight 45 billion cyber events daily. And that point is not lost on you, right, Ranjita? So Mastercard went and bought $2.65 billion worth of a cybersecurity company. Mm-hmm. Can you share, like, how did you even get into this business?
Yep, absolutely. Scary start to the panel with a lot of stories around horses and guns and things. But yeah, so from a Mastercard perspective, I would say we've always been in that trust business in a sense. So when you swipe your card, you never have to really think about, okay, am I paying this merchant? How is that payment happening? Is it going to end up with a fraudster? Sometimes it does, right? So we all know that. And that's why fraud's been escalating. However, if you think about it, we've been protecting transactions for a very long time, right? So well over 2 decades, we've been using AI models and things like that. But then what we realize is as we're protecting transactions, the fraud is moving. So over the years, as we're working with issuers and things, we've noticed that everyone's getting more sophisticated. Everyone's applying AI, everyone's applying models. So the fraud at the time of the transaction is going down. However, it's migrating. It's migrating to identity fraud. It's migrating to bad devices, usage of devices to trick the ecosystem, make it look like it's human when it's a bot. And then you take it even one step further and you're looking at cybercrime. So me and Diksha were talking before, the cybercrime problem in the globe is over $10 trillion, which in GDP terms would be the 3rd largest country on the planet. So this is a huge problem. So cyber is really critical to us. We had to move to the cyber realm because that's where credentials are getting breached. That's where PII is getting out there. All of this data is out there on the web, on the dark web, that people or threat actors are able to use that to perpetrate fraud into the financial ecosystem. So therefore, protecting the cyber ecosystem and the cyber environment is really critical to ensuring that we end up with safe payments at the end of the day.
Actually, so true, right? Again, raise of hands, how many of you have actually had an incident where your card was stolen? Credit card or worse still, debit card? I've had an incident very recently where someone's booking ski tickets at a resort for tomorrow on my card today, and we couldn't do anything about it. Like, that person is there, I'm calling the resort, and I can't do anything about it, right? And from here, that is so unnerving. We are moving to account, direct transfers now, right? So, Patricia, tell us, how does that complicate things? Because that's not a secured network to kind of transfer money real time, right?
Yeah, and the challenge was that, again, it's the velocity of it, the speed in which it's moving. It's the ability to move it through many major accounts quickly. And it's also a matter of, the timing of it prevents the ability to do fraud detection quickly, and also, concerns which you're going to have around recourse and actions and follow-up, right? So, one of the ways to really kind of counter that, and I think you talked about it earlier, Webster Bank, we do a lot of cybersecurity awareness and fraud training for especially the group of customers for us, which is our seniors. And the more training and the more skills that you're able to get out, the information that you're sharing out there is very helpful.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to add, actually, from an account-to-account perspective, she's absolutely right? The velocity of the money. And that's a really key factor. Now, in certain markets, in the US, a little bit harder to do because we've got a lot of financial institutions, but in certain markets where it's a little bit more concentrated, like say, think Canada, the UK, you can layer security on. So you can have models that are looking at that flow between, say, 5 banks in a consortium way to kind of figure out, hey, is this transaction look right, or does it look anomalous? The other thing you can also do is be checking the identity of the sender and the receiver account, right? With account information to kind of ensure that, does this look like an account that is legit, potentially belongs to this person, or could it have been an account that was taken over? So layering on security on top is also a potential way to kind of protect those types of transactions.
Yeah, and I think that's where the card networks kind of add a very valuable layer, like leveraging your data. I think you're a very unique spot on our panel today because you're using your data not just to protect yourself, but also provide that service to the ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about what parts of cybersecurity do you really work on versus do you do network security or the common cybersecurity companies that kind of talk about it?
So ours is a lot more around protecting the financial transaction, if you will, whether it's account to account, card transactions, et cetera. So where we kind of get involved and where we help our customers is obviously at the point of the transaction, but also identity. So synthetic identity is a huge problem in the ecosystem. Account takeovers is a big problem in the ecosystem. So we have tools and capabilities that can help with that. We have behavioral biometrics and other capabilities that can tell whether this is really Patricia or if it's somebody else because of the way that they're utilizing the phone and the way they're interacting with their device. And then on top of that, we also help with post-transaction capabilities as well. So think chargebacks, digital receipts. How do you manage your subscriptions? Because subscriptions is a huge vector of fraud and or chargeback. So think of that entire payment ecosystem, what happens before the transaction, during, and post, and all of our capabilities kind of help ourselves and our customers in all of those areas.
Absolutely, and those are generally the points that are the biggest points of vulnerability when money is exchanging hands, essentially, right?
That's right.
Larry, you've done this for a while, all the large banks. You have so much experience seeing how this has kind of evolved and what are some of the best practices. Can you talk to us a little bit about what is the broader security framework at BMO that you're kind of working with?
Sure, I've never felt younger, thank you. But it's all good. No, look, what attracted me to BMO was that it was the first bank, and there's been others that followed, that combined cyber, fraud, physical security, and crisis management. What was exciting to me was the ability to use data in a way that I thought was rather innovative, to understand the customer holistically, to understand all the ways we interact with the customer. And we're progressing nicely in that area, particularly as you start looking at AI and machine learning and how do we not only prevent frauds, but also hopefully predict them and get ahead, and also to really understand how they're attacked. I want to know, where is the most deposit frauds happening in our branches? Where are we seeing the most account takeovers? Is that in these applications? Is it perhaps in our websites? One of the mantras in cybersecurity right now is why hack in when you can log in? So credential stealing is really the biggest problem we're having. And from a security perspective, that's really, really hard because it looks like the customer or it looks like the employee. So you've got to look for that anomalous behavior. So those are just some areas. I could go on quite some time, but I was told to be punchy, so hopefully that was punchy.
Why hack in when you can log in? And he asked me to introduce him as head of financial crimes, not crimes unit. So I'd like to point that out there. And about age, like talk to him about AI and you'll know what age he is. So Mastercard, Michael mentioned on the call, you're detecting 40% more fraud this year versus last year. What you know, Larry keeps saying, you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. So, but 40% is very impressive nonetheless, right? I'm sure not all the banks have the financial muscle to kind of keep investing in this space, even though it is a very emerging threat. How do your interactions or work with larger banks differ from the smaller banks? And you partner with all of them, right?
Yeah, we partner with all of them. And I would say a lot of the large banks, they're much more sophisticated. They have a lot of resources. They have large fraud teams of their own. And they can put a lot of muscle behind these kinds of threats. With the smaller banks, they tend to be a lot more reliant on their processors. So kind of we work with the processors as well to ensure that whatever capabilities we have, we're sharing with the processors so the small banks can get it through their processors. So that's how we kind of cover the market. But from the 40% increase, we're always working on our models. And one of the most recent improvements that we've put in is with generative AI, to use all of the data that we see to actually predict what the next transaction coming from that particular merchant and cardholder could be. Okay. And when that transaction comes over, if it's far beyond that realm of possibility, we're able to flag it as well. So we keep adding on second and third stage models to our AI models that are looking at.
It's always a challenge, right? Like yesterday, Pfizer was saying you can bring down fraud to zero, but then your auth rates will completely go down the drain, right? That's the constant challenge that financial firms are kind of battling when you're moving towards real-time transactions, right? Larry, you guys have been using AI forever in this space, right? Can you tell how some of those use cases have evolved? Like what is the latest that you're kind of using, and how is it different?
Yeah, look, I think we're still very much in the infancy stages of AI. I think it's kind of a novelty. When you talk cybersecurity, to me, it's still very much a cocktail conversation. And I don't mean that as any disrespect, but it seems more academic, more notional. In the fraud space, it's alive and well. It is absolutely part of how we defend and protect our customers. If I can share one quick story, we have an authentication tool that's AI-based. And I go sit with our fraud operations teams, and they're located around the world. And I don't want PowerPoint slides. I actually want to sit with the analysts as they're actually doing the calls. So one of the analysts listens to a call to our call center. And this woman, in this case, calls up and says, hey, by the way, you've frozen my checks. I need you to unfreeze my checks. So this AI model, there's an assigned percentage of probability that it's a fraudster, and the number was rather high. So the analyst is kind of going, geez, this is probably not a customer, but somebody trying to commit a crime. So the analyst says, well, look, all I need you to do is just go to one of our branches. Please bring your driver's license. We'll release the fraud. We just need to validate it's you. Well, the woman on the call says, well, I'm sorry, there's no BMO branch near me. The person in the call center goes, well, ma'am, I'm looking at your address. There's actually a BMO branch 3 miles away. I can give you the address, or you can drive. And she goes, oh, well, thank you very much. This call hangs up. She now listens to the next call. Same woman, same voice. This time her ATM is frozen, and she needs it unfrozen. She's going to keep calling our call center over and over again until somebody authenticates her, and she's able to commit the fraud. Right. If it wasn't for AI, we would never be able to connect those dots and never be able to tell the analyst that the person you're talking to isn't a customer, but a fraudster.
Right. There's a lot of data connectivity, even insurance firms use this a lot to identify outliers in transactions, right? But not all is hunky-dory when you're using AI. Like we've faced or heard of so many challenges that come along the way. So Patty, we had this as one of the audience questions as well. Like, what are the challenges that you guys are facing when you're using AI?
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges you have is perhaps someone inadvertently, not necessarily being aware within your environment, taking the data that you have, perhaps sensitive data, customer data, and then using it in an environment where oftentimes you're used to kind of using ChatGPT on your phone in your home environment, how you may use it to have efficiencies, and cutting and pasting that and then putting it out and not realizing that's going outside the domains of your corporate environment and out into kind of the public domain, right? And once it's out there, it can kind of expand and get pulled into other situations, and that's very concerning for a lot of people, right? The risk increases at that point.
And talking about complexity, right, it only increases, right? There's only one way it moves. So now we're talking about not just regular card transactions, we are talking about agentic commerce. I don't know how many of you caught this, but there were a couple of really interesting product drops, and Mastercard is kind of working on that problem as well, right? Ranjita, can you just lay out, like, what does it look like and what is the complexity? Just explain to us.
So the beauty of agentic commerce is, and me and Larry were talking before in the green room, it's very exciting because here you have an agent who is working on your behalf. You can tell it, give it parameters of your trip to Thailand and have it book all your flights, all of your activities, maybe get a couple of restaurant reservations, and off it goes. It has your credential, and it with your consent, of course, it is able to do that. But the complexity is, and as Larry pointed out very well in the room, is, well, how do you authenticate that? How do you know that it's your agent? How do you know that the agent wasn't taken over? How do you know that, have you done proper KYA? Know your agent on this, right? So I think those are all of the complexities that come along with it. I think from a technological perspective, we're there. Technology can do this today. I think the infrastructure around it, the authentication around it, the fraud and safety and security aspects, and the program around it that you wrap around that is very interesting and exciting, but it opens up so many great possibilities of booking the trip, which I don't have to spend hours doing, so which would be great for me.
So it was very fun to see the agent actually come up with ideas and propose what I should buy. But I don't know about folks in the room. I love that it asks me for permission to spend my money. We'll eventually get to a point
My
where
kids don't do that, so, you know.
See, that's what we are moving towards then. So Larry, I'll probably end with you on this. So tell us a little bit more about what are the pitfalls that people need to watch out when leveraging AI for financial fraud and security.
Sure. I used to work in Washington, so I'm going to answer my question and I'll answer hers. The other thing that we know, we talk a lot about AI, but most financial institutions, honestly, most of the frauds, the high-level frauds we're facing right now is deposit fraud, check fraud. So what's new is old. They're literally robbing mail carriers, sorry for guns again, robbing mail carriers, stealing the letters, finding checks, using chemicals to change the addressee, changing the amount, and I mean, they are making a ton of money. But when you look at the risks around just security, and if you look at AI, one of the biggest problems we have is insiders. And when I talk about insiders, I think you automatically go to somebody who's actually trying to do harm, but that you would trust. I'll be honest with you, that's not the biggest problem with insiders. The biggest problems from a security perspective with insiders are people who know the rules but decide they don't apply to them, right? Well, it's nice I'm not supposed to put PII in AI or ChatGPT, but you know what? This is important, and actually they're overreacting. I know I'm not supposed to click on this link or open that attachment, but honestly, it looks important and I should open it. Oh my gosh, right? Then you have the people who really aren't going, the rules don't apply to me, but rather they just made an honest mistake. How often have you put an email and then all of a sudden you send it and oh my gosh, it was something that was proprietary, something that was sensitive, but you just sent it outside the firm, and now you're begging the person to please not open it and recall it. There is some technologies that are helping in that regard, but when you look at insider, no matter whether it's AI, normal security, it really is some of the biggest risks come from your employees, but it's not because they're trying to do something wrong. It's because they don't think the rules apply to them, or we just don't have the right controls to prevent that action from maybe doing harm.
Well, that was most of what we wanted to talk about today. I think what I want the audience to take away today is, first thing from Larry, the way financial crimes people think about it is, why hack in when you can log in? So that is my takeaway from today's evening.
Please, it's not mine. I just used it. Please use it at will, as I clearly have.
But for sure, right? Like with the way emerging tech is evolving and it's becoming so real, so fast, I think it will be foolish to kind of ignore the impact that it has. Money velocity and real-time payments is all amazing only until it isn't. So it's very, very important to kind of address this problem. And it obviously is a behemoth, as Ranjita pointed out. It's a 10 trillion problem. And I want, and I hope that all of you take back the size of this problem and go back knowing better from the session today. Thank you so much. It was a lovely panel, and you've been a lovely audience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. That concludes the content portion for today. I just want to thank all of our speakers for all of their insight, especially that last panel. I found myself raising my hand a little bit too many times. But also a big thank you to all of you, because we received a lot of questions from you, so thank you for taking part in that. But also I'd like to thank our sponsor, Rocket Software. Without them, we wouldn't have had these conversations for today. If you would like to find out some more information about them, all you have to do is go to our event website, click on that resources tab, and you can find some more information there. And if there was something that was said today and you didn't quite jot it down, you couldn't remember what it was, you can go back and watch this on demand. You can go back to BloombergLive.com and you can watch the whole event right there. That concludes everything for today. Thank you for joining us. We have a network reception following this for everyone watching online. Have a good night, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you.